Welcome, everyone, to the Contact Center Perspectives Podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, I guarantee a super interesting conversation. We have Mark Brody here. And Mark, you are not only the CEO and founder of Brohawk Solutions, which is a consultancy that you've run for a number of years. I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about that. Additionally, just as interesting is you work with JD Powers. You're a certified consultant with JD Powers, basically help contact centers get up to high performance level and what it means to do that and how they can do that. So you're on a regular basis between both positions. You're consulting on a large swath of companies and contact centers and how do they make the most of their people and engagement on those people that we all know leads to then better engagement with our employees, better engagement with our customers, and growth of the business. But what I'd love to do is maybe have you just explain just a little bit more rather than those kind of highlights before we get started.
Steve, I'd be more than happy to. And thank you very much for having me as a guest today. I know we've been trying to connect on this for a minute or two and appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I have my own company, Brohawk Solutions. Founded it about 6.5 years ago. And the focus for Brohawk Solutions is helping companies align their people, products, and technology, creating a better employee experience. A couple of ways I do that is I help people with talent optimization as a certified practitioner for predictive index. I can help companies on the technology side from curation and being completely agnostic with technologies that are out there to help them with CCaaS, UCaaS, whatever the technology needs are that they need, cybersecurity, whatever it is that they need. And then, as you were mentioning, I'm a certified evaluator for JD Power in the JD Power ecosystem. And that's where some of the operational assessments that I do as an independent consultant come into play. And that piece is really interesting because I get to talk to a lot of really great organizations and understand, one, how they got to be as great as they are, but also help them find those gaps, identify the gaps and how to fill those gaps to make them even higher performing than they already are. And then there are some companies that we get to work with, that I get to work with, to have some opportunities and help them navigate through those opportunities through different projects.
So I think the topic for today is directly related to your experience. Your background is leveraging trusted advisors as your GPS, like it's your directional beacon. And one of the things that you said there as you're going through your background was that you work with a number of different contact centers over time and learning how they got to be as good as they are. So you're learning every day and we're going to learn from you. That's one of the things I know, like doing this podcast, I learn every single time I have a conversation. So as much gray hairs as we have an experience, we're always learning. And that's what we want to do today. So I'm just going to ask you, just to start us out here, tell us what you think is behind the role of trusted advisors as the GPS for the contact center, getting the people, optimizing the talent. Why is that important in your perspective?
Yeah, so great question, Steve. So I think the role of the trusted advisor, and we've talked a little bit before about it being the GPS for your contact center. So oftentimes leaders within contact centers, whether they're frontline, mid-level, senior executive, know a lot about what's going on in their four walls. They don't have the time to really dedicate to exploring out without being hit by a lot of salesy information to know what other contact centers are doing. And so the role of the trusted advisor, from my perspective, is to help navigate what is the right levers to pull within your organization as opposed to what everybody else is doing. Because as I tell folks from a technology standpoint, there's a lot of great technologies, but not every technology is going to be great for you. So understanding your environment, what's going to be the best fit, not just from a budget perspective, but also from a performance, from a culture, what's going to have the biggest lift to helping you become even more high performance.
My takeaway from all this is that you're understanding best practices. All these contact centers have put all kinds of technologies, all kinds of workflows and processes and trainings and all kinds of things into the development of their contact center. Each client is a test bed for what's working and what's not, what they've tried and what they've failed on. Not any one of us can do that on our own. Is that a good takeaway from what you were saying?
That's a great takeaway. And The thing that as a trusted advisor, I always love to hear is we've always done it this way. We tried and it didn't work out that way. Sometimes getting the right set of eyes in on a problem can help you overcome some of the obstacles that may have occurred before or have been obstacles to allowing an organization to change what they've done historically and become even better. Great analogy is with COVID. How many companies out there were saying, we will never be work from home. We have to work in an office. That's the only way we can be productive. Prove that wrong. When put into a situation, companies were able to figure out a way to be productive, to maintain their culture that they had, and have actually become stronger as a result.
I was thinking about these excuses like we've tried that before. It didn't work. I hear that from my teenagers every day. Sometimes it just takes a different perspective, but did we try it in this kind of a context or do we get these kind of people involved? And so challenging the status quo and being able to draw from successes from across the board, I think is one of the most valuable areas that a trusted advisor can bring. That turns into, you put it as this, the right people in the right seats at the right time. Obviously, we understand what that means, but tell us what you think that means and why you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. So for me, not every position is the right position for everybody. And so there's going to be certain intrinsic and extrinsic motivators that people have. For instance, I tend to be more big picture thinking. I taste the purple squirrel. You put me in a mode where I have to be very detail oriented and I'm going to go down rabbit holes and it's going to take me longer to figure out a solution. Now I'll get to it, but it may take me a little bit longer than others. So for me, whenever an organization is going through a change management process, as an example, they're bringing on a new technology, they're trying to change a process. There's certain people that you have to have involved in those change dynamics that can help push the team, push the organization forward. But you also have to have some folks that are balancing out and are more like the lighthouse of the team. Hey, we're going to see these speed bumps or these rocks over here, or we're not seeing there's a drunk driver coming from this other direction, whatever the case may be. Probably a bad analogy, and I apologize if I offended anybody about that. But you always have to have people that are going to have certain roles in any change management process. And as a result, that's what I mean by right people, right place, right time, to make sure that you have the picture thinkers alongside the people that are actually doing the things on a day-to-day basis that are going to be most impacted from any changes that occur.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into change management, but you got to be open to change to begin with those leaders. You got to be open to being challenged as those leaders. You got to be open to breaking the status quo as those leaders. I'm sure what happens is when you bring in either data or stories from other contact centers and said, here's where this is really working that we're not doing at all here, or maybe we're not doing right. But that's a door opener. That's not an opinion. Trusted advisors don't bring in just opinions. They bring in facts. They bring in case studies. They bring in instances where massive improvements have been made. So I have to ask you, if you were to like look back at all the advising you've done across all these different contact centers, if you said, here's the 3 keys, Steve, let's write a book on this, the 3 keys to a successful contact center, what would be the things that you would put at the top of that list?
Oh man, that's a great question as well. You're just full of great questions today, Steve. For the first question that I have is, why does the contact center even exist? What is our why? And that has to be, for me, the foundational question that needs to be asked. If you're working for a service organization, your why is going to be different than that of a retail organization. So why does your contact center exist? Second thing is, what are your customer expectations? Why do your customers think you exist? And thirdly, once you know the answers to those questions, what are you equipping your front lines with in order to be successful so they can match the customer expectations? Going back to what my 3-legged stool is, optimizing people, processes, and technology. So if you understand your why, your customer's why, and then you can support them with the tools and resources that they need, That's exactly where every contact center needs to be focused.
Oh, I love that in terms of the why, because that could be a question that often is just seems so obvious that you don't ask it. But you're right. Different contact centers have very different whys. Some things are going to be the same. But would one of the whys be this? I'm just curious. Why do we have a contact center? Because we want the voice of the customer to influence every aspect of what we do as a business. Why is that important? That is a question of why that most companies don't ever ask. In fact, when you look at the contact center as a cost center, which here we are in this day and age, and it still happens more often than not. So why? It's not just to answer questions that make sure that we're satisfying people that have some questions and are upset. It's why should be, how is this an accelerant, a fuel for growth in the entire organization? That changes things. Then all of a sudden, average handle time KPIs are driving the business and the decision making and the training and the materials and everything. All right. So I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to come around 180 degrees. So you're consulting, whether it's Brohawk or JD Powers all the time. What are the top 3 biggest mistakes that you see contact centers making these days?
First one is resistance to change. We've always done it that way, so we're going to continue to do it this way. Yeah, probably not a good idea, unless you're in a highly regulated industry. And even then, there's opportunities to change and to improve. The number 2 thing is we want to do AI. Great. What is it about AI that you want to do? I don't know. We just got to do some. Okay. So tell me, what's your use cases? We have to be able to answer our customers' questions faster. Okay, there's a use case. So what is it about? How do you want to do it? What is your environment? What does your CRMs look like? What is your knowledge base? What does your telephony platform look like? And how can we go ahead and leverage the technology that you already have to get there? So that's a big mistake I see a lot of organizations doing or making right now, is they're not clearly defining what their AI journey needs to be or it should look like. The third one is a combination of that, and companies are putting out solutions that there are no problems for. We want to go ahead and put an AI self-service. I'm just using this as an example. We want to put a self-service tool out in front of our EDR. Our customers hate it because they can't get back to us. The companies will go ahead and put together a solution saying, okay, we got this great thing that it can cut tin cans in half and julienne fries and all this other stuff, but it doesn't meet the customer's expectations. It doesn't help the customer anymore. So you just wasted a whole lot of time putting together a pet project that really had zero impact on a positive customer experience.
I would not have guessed that, but it makes a ton of sense, where it's like chasing the shiny object. It's the shiny object. It's HI, put an HI bot out in front. Everybody else is doing it. We should do it too. So I got one last top 3 I want to ask. I had no idea I was going to have 3 top 3s, but when you go in, obviously JD Powers has a certification program that they've thought through to create high performance contact centers. What are the top 3 criteria that JD Powers has established and you're now evaluating to be designated, certified as a high performing contact center?
Would say I can't speak on behalf of JD Power, so I'll preface this answer, but the attributes that are going to have the strongest drivers of customer dissatisfaction and that can actually pull down a customer's impression of an organization would be, how quickly am I getting my answer to the question that I called in about, the reason I called in about. If it's taking too long, that's going to cause some dissatisfaction. I already mentioned knowledge as being one of those other drivers. And oddly enough, if your reps aren't courteous to the people that they're working with, it's a dissatisfier too. All of those 3, they have a lot of subgroups to them, but those are the 3 things. If you have rude agents, if you have knowledge that's out of whack, you're giving bad information out, and if it's putting more effort on the customer to go ahead and get their problem solved, those are the 3 big dissatisfiers right there.
I love that. So it's a lot of the high performance contact centers are the ones that are avoiding some of the biggest sources of dissatisfaction, which makes good sense. So I want to take a slight shift here, and I want to talk about scaling contact centers and what is the most important factors that you have to take into consideration when you're scaling your contact center?
Obviously, the forecasting piece. So where is the drive? What is the driver of the additional volume coming in from? Is it coming in from a particular channel, voice, chat, web, email, text, carrier pigeon, whatever the case may be? What's going to be driving it? And is it something that marketing is driving? Or is it just, you got a great product out there and it went viral on TikTok, so now everybody wants it, as an example? A scaling piece, where's the volume coming from? Why is it going to be occurring? And the things that people are going to be interacting with your contact center in, are they what I would call tier one type of calls that could be handled through an AI bot, an AI front ended on an AI agent, basically? Or are they things that you don't have to pay high prices for in the United States to do internally? Can you nearshore, offshore? In some of these markets, for instance, if you try to do everything internally, that's great, but you have attrition. You have other things to take into account where, yeah, I've worked with contact centers that have had locations, partners in nearshore and offshore locations, and their attrition is a lot lower. And they're able to get two agents for the price of one. And so if budget is consideration, then you really need to look at, where am I going to get the biggest bang for my buck? It could be a combination of AI agents aligned with live agents that are near shore, offshore. And the BPO industry as a whole has historically had a bad rap. People think of BPOs sometimes as being in an offshore location, not getting the greatest customer service, language issues, accent issues, things like that. But in actuality, some of the best customer experiences that people can have are sometimes with these nearshore, offshore agents, because that agent wants to be there. They're focused on the job and they want to be part of a great organization that they don't necessarily have access to in their home country. And so BPOs, I think, are a great addition to a scaling strategy for an organization that is going to be experiencing some rapid growth. So have that. For me, I think that if a company is anticipating that you're going to have to increase significantly over the course of the next year or so, take a look at how AI fit into your culture and what you need to do. And that was along with change management. I bring an AI agent in. Guess what I can do with my existing internal team? I can have them work on more complex issues. I can scale them. So that has to be part of the scaling strategy as well. Or what am I going to be offloading to either AI or to a BPO partner, either nearshore or offshore?
So let me reflect in and see if I get this right. I think your point of view is that in scaling organizations, one of the most important things that you can do is think about, because you're scaling, but you're managing costs, quality at the same time, that part of your strategic plan to scale should incorporate a BPO partner. And one of the things you said in there is they want that job. This job isn't their money like it is in the United States. This is their career. They take it very seriously. Also, my question is, what we were talking about earlier, this trusted advisor role. BPO partners work with lots of organizations. They see and learn best practices. They see what's working. They learn from their failures. They have insights into the market that you don't. Is that a takeaway? I'm just trying to think about, are you saying that BPO partners are a strategic part of the scaling and growth plan?
Yes, and they have to be. You don't want your BPO partner to be a vendor. You want them to be a partner. Okay. Because they're going to see things from a voice of the customer perspective that maybe your internal teams aren't seeing. And so you want them to be being a partner. Plus, from a redundancy standpoint, if I had a contact center in a coastal area and there was the high likelihood that I could be knocked out because of, let's say, Cat 5 hurricane, or my agents would be impacted in their ability to connect up to the internet or whatever, why not have at least a footprint of redundancy in another geographical location that can support you and your customers? Because guess what? Your customers are going to continue to call. Your customers are going to continue to have expectations, and having as a scaling strategy, always be looking for geographical improvements that can be made to go ahead and make sure that your customers are always supported.
So I'm going to ask maybe the same question, but in a little bit different way. If you were to say on a scale of 1 to 10, the importance of a BPO partner in the
Yep.
scaling strategy of a contact center, 1, it's not important at all. Not important at all. 10, it's vital to the success of your scaling strategy. Where would you put it on that scale?
I'll give you an overall answer, but I'll give you another answer first. I would say it depends. And it depends on the organization and the type of contact center. Why does that contact center exist? I think it has to be on a scale of 1 to 10. I would probably rate it as a 7 to be considered with every scaling discussion that's had. You should always be looking at how can we do things better, more efficiently, and more cost effective as a contact center? Because at the end of the day, our customers are going to have an expectation of us to deliver when they interact with us.
I am the shell answer, or you're the shell answer man. I'm the question guy. I've got one last question for you. And that is, we've talked about a lot here. So if there was one thing that you wanted the contact center leaders and CX leaders that are watching this to take away from today's conversation, what would that one thing be?
Oh my gosh. Focus on your employee experience and it will resolve any customer experience issues that you have.
I love the brevity of that. I'm used to getting 5-minute answers to the one thing. But there's power and simplicity there, that employee engagement is so important. In fact, there's been many studies that have shown that better employee engagement equals better customer engagement equals more revenue, more growth in the company. We all know that, but it's good to be reminded of that. It's such a priority for us in our business. Mark, thank you for coming today. And I know people are going to have additional questions. And if they did, would it be appropriate that we handed out a link to your LinkedIn profile that people could reach you?
Most definitely. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. If they want to grab some time with me, just have a one-on-one discussion or an exploratory discussion. You can go to my LinkedIn, my Brohawk Solutions LinkedIn page, or my website, brohawksolutions.com, fill out a form, and we'll go ahead and get connected on some time. I love to chat with people about anything contact center related. I'll geek out on stuff, but definitely my LinkedIn profile for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Mark, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, Steve, and everybody out there. And Steve, I hope you have an amazing holiday season.